Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and I am back again for another week of plugin posting. And I was a little under the weather last week. I'm feeling better. I've taken a few days getting to focus on some of the things that I care about, and have been with the usual madness as far as figuring out how to set up this whole rig. But it's all good. It's all running Toslink and various inputs into each other. I have been making notes of other things that I want to try to do, and I have a new thing coming out related to this magical circle thing that I've had around for a while. I am going to be putting out a firmware for the Music Thing modular chord organ. I have successfully done the firmware and the setup where you can do it with chords and one of the CVs gives you circle of fifths. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm going to be playing with that on Tuesday. That's been built into my Music Thing. But what we have for a plugin today is a little thing called PocketVerbs. Yes, PocketVerbs is here. People have been wanting this a lot, and because it makes a bunch of interesting sounds. It's also taken me a long time to do because it's a bear to put together. It has enough lines of code in it to be like a small novel. And me porting it and making it work was kind of, it's kind of kludged together. It's not terribly maintainable. And the way that it came out is I basically just sort of copy and pasted the guts of it and duplicated it for each channel, and it was still a bear to work on. But if you play it, it sounds kind of like this. This is your room setting. Now, PocketVerbs has many things to do, and here is one of them. We've got this gate effect going on, and it's able to suppress the reverberation. Or let it sustain. But PocketVerbs' real thing is more along the lines of the craziness it can get up to with some of the other settings. This is the boringest setting. You kind of have to do full wet because it's very dry by nature. We have a size control. The size control kind of recalculates on the fly as it goes. So it should not smash the computer too heavily while operating, but it's still gonna make sound effects as you do it. But I hear you say, what else do you have if this room is the boringest one? How about the chamber effect? And if we do extremely large sizes, that gets to be a pretty crazy effect. Although since this is now the chamber effect and it sustains a lot more, what we can do is play with the gating, which it'll demonstrate it a little bit more. By the way, this is a dual mono effect, so expect interesting stereo behavior out of it. We've also got the spring effect. Now, this may or may not be that much like a real spring. And of course, gating is interesting on this one. It seems to be kind of tracking what the input level is and making the reverb bloom up according to what the input is doing, which can be a weird effect. And of course you can make the size be small or really small. Kind of messed up. Oh, but wait, there's more. We've also got tiled. How's that for your crazy 80s drum sound? All of these are sort of weird hand-coded algorithms. They're kind of like the stuff that I did with MV, except for it's a pile of them, and they're all just hard-coded direct. So if you like it, that's good. If I revisit any of them, it'll be one at a time. I should be able to make them sound better. But this is PocketVerbs. This is the whole pile of all of them, with all of the controls and all the settings. For instance, that's interesting. You'll also notice that since it is a dual mono reverb, it's acting like the reverbs are built into the separate little drums, even though it's a stereo mix that we have. And that's a different kind of behavior. You can open it up a little bit. PocketVerbs, man. This has always been popular, and rightly so. It is one of those things that people were really pretty into in its day. So now it's available, free audio unit, VST, everything, open source. Good luck reading the source. This one's a bear. It is just so cumbersome and like kind of poorly coded and stuff. It's not sophisticated at all. Now, I will make an observation about that too. And that is, the reason I coded it this way originally was because I thought it was going to be more CPU efficient, and that's actually not true. If you were a coder and you need to learn about this kind of stuff, here's how that works, is you might be tempted to sort of unroll your stuff and try to do it all in a list of things, but modern CPUs are capable of having like an extra variable in there to do loops and keep track of stuff. And as long as it's able to sit inside the CPU and run, you don't really pay any penalty for that. What you pay penalties for is going and getting other stuff out of memory. So you can do multiple calculations. The drums are a little distracting. Here, I'll tell you what. We'll make it be a big ambient wave. So, while the drums are coming from outer space, the reason I'm doing some things like in wet-dry calculations with recenter plugins, it'll often go like wet equals this, and then rather than having a separate variable for dry, I'll do 1.0 minus dry. And that's because in modern CPUs, if you're doing that calculation, it's actually faster than going and getting a separate variable. It can do the little 1 minus and use the same variable. It'll save a little bit of space that way, and it'll be able to run faster as a result. But then that's the coder thing. Probably not all of you are super interested in that part. But you might be interested in what the heck is this? Well, this is Zarathustra. And what that means is it's a giant space reverb where what you're doing is, I wonder if I can, let me play with the controls a little bit while I'm doing this recording. We're going to try to monitor the input. Oh yes. So now my mic is going into the reverb. Yay. This is the Zarathustra. It's a giant, expandy kind of thing. Or it could be small. And it makes this sort of dark spaciness. It's actually a lot like MV, but it has its own tone color. So, when you have the big expanded kind of thing, it'll make a giant, like, send a horn through it, and it'll sound like 2001 or whatever. No. Or something like that. And we've also got stretch. Stretch is meant to be like Paul Stretch. It's much brighter. Zarathustra is dark. Stretch is bright. So what you get is this extremely expanded, spacey kind of thing going on. And that also is a weird tone effect going on. Again, these are all separate algorithms living within the plugin. All right, let's see now. So we had chamber, spring, tiled, which was the drum room thing, room, which is actually quite boring sounding, and it's got a lot of dryness to it. But this is another thing that you can do by just sort of balancing the tonalities. For instance, that ends up sounding kind of like a relatively plausible room, and that just sounds huge. And I get the stretch and Zarathustra. So what we can do is, oh, it's letting some dry through when I do that. I can say, I have been Chris from Airwindows. I'm looking forward to playing with a strange thing when Tuesday runs around. Yes, I have the chord organ firmware just about ready to go. And I'm working on a variety of things as well. But you can have PocketVerbs right now. And again, this is here. Let's spring it out. And just a touch of gating. Like this. Whatever. So this is PocketVerbs, and I hope you like it. It's probably not, if it gets updates, it's going to get updates as individual plugins, because this combined one is too huge. It's unmaintainable. But there's lots of stuff I can play with. And actually, that's super distracting. So that has been PocketVerbs. And if you would buy this plugin in its new AU VST form for $50, by all means, go and throw another $50 towards my Patreon. Doing the Patreon means I get to throw money into Airwindows and get new stuff going on. Among them, like the chord organ thing that I'm talking about that you'll be seeing soon enough, it's like it's a really interesting generative music thing that you can do if you're a modular guy. And that only exists because I was able to get chord organ kits and build them. And I bought those. I didn't get given them. Nobody's giving me anything. But I get to get stuff regardless. Sometimes I get stuff that you might see sampled at some point. And it'll all kind of come together. The more I'm able to do, the more you see as a output from that. Because anytime I'm doing something new and original with the resources that Patreon makes available to me, or you using Patreon make available to me, Patreon itself doesn't do any of those things. It's the people behind all of this. Then it ends up turning around, bouncing around a little bit, and returning to you. And that's basically, I see that as my life work. That's what I'm there to do. So, by all means, support the Patreon if you like seeing all this kind of stuff going on. I'm starting to chill out a little bit and relax somewhat over last week, although granted it still takes me half an hour to set up these recordings and things. But I'm gradually learning the new stuff and getting better at it. And, I hope you enjoy how this works out, and I hope you enjoy PocketVerbs, which will have PocketVerbs go quietly away now. And I'll do my live stream on Monday and get suggestions for the Evergreens podcast, which is for patrons and folks like that. Last week I asked to just do whatever the heck it is that I wanted, and that ended up being Devo's Duty Now for the Future, which was very exciting. But I think I'm going to get back towards, I think I can ask people for suggestions again. We'll see what turns up. And on Tuesday, I get to play with the new Circle of Fifths chord organ firmware, which is rather exciting. I'll see where that goes. But for now, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.